The town of Conway, New Hampshire, is known to be a small, picturesque place with a population of around 10,000 people. Here lives 14-year-old Abigail Hernandez, who along with her sister was being raised by their single mother. The family was well known throughout the community as being kind and friendly people, and Abigail was much loved amongst her friendship group. On October 9th of 2013, she was walking home from school instead of catching the bus like she normally would, and the walk home was proving to be rather difficult. This was because she had chosen to wear a pair of new boots that day, and was not wearing socks with them. Having stopped to check the blisters on her feet, a car pulled up, and the man inside the vehicle spoke to her. This man is 33-year-old Nathaniel Kibby, also known as Nate. Kibby was born in 1980 and attended Kennett High School in the late 1990s. He would have graduated from here in 99, but was banned from the premises for misconduct a year prior. Nate was known throughout the school to be a bully who often manipulated others with the threat of violence, a personality trait that followed him throughout his teenage years and into adulthood. The incident that got him banned from school, though, happened in 1998, where he approached another student, 16-year-old Shauna Bova, who was walking to the bus stop after school. He had asked her if she would talk to him for a little while, and she declined this, saying that she really needed to get home. Nate grabbed her arm and neck and held her against her will as he repeatedly asked to talk with her. Every time she struggled to get away from him, she said that he would strengthen his grip. The incident didn't progress any further than this moment though, and Nate eventually released her. She would go on to tell the police what happened, and as a result, Nate was sent to a psychiatric ward for 49 days. This marks the start of a long criminal history for Nate Kibby, as he is in and out of jail and juvie for almost the next 2 decades. Many of these offences are minor assaults, but there are some relating to marijuana possession and distribution and intimidation of witnesses. An officer from the New Hampshire police force, Chris Purley, said that he knew Nate since the boy was 12 and had many run-ins with him, one being an incident where Nate would run a red light early one morning, then argued with the officer that he felt entitled to be able to run red lights as he had started work at such an early hour. Officer Purley describes Nate as a highly intelligent but myopic individual. Nate was obsessed with guns from an early age, and at 33 years old, he was working as a machinist at a local Conway gun shop, approximately 34 miles from where he lived in a trailer park in Gorham. His residence in Gorham would reflect his great interest in guns and also his love for the US Constitution, as his mobile home stored an arsenal of weapons. It also had the American flag hung up at various places in and outside of it, and was home to a personal gym, which had an array of American flag towels. There is a framed copy of the US Constitution on his wall, amongst many other patriotic items, and a large storage container was stationed on the property right outside of his house. This container has been modified to have 3 separate rooms that were all soundproofed, heated, and had electricity running to them. One of these rooms was used as a testing room for his guns. His neighbors recall the man being a very weird individual, one that they would avoid as he was said to always be disgruntled and abrasive. He hated police, and he also believed that a zombie apocalypse was going to occur at any minute. So this man, Nathaniel Kibby, sees Abigail struggling with her shoes as he drives by and stops to speak with her. He offers her a lift to wherever she needs to go, and Abigail accepts this. She says that she believed God had listened to her prayers as her feet were incredibly sore, and although she was aware that getting into a vehicle with a stranger is not a good idea, the town of Conway was known to be a very friendly place, and this man seemed so nice that she felt she had no reason to fear him. As they are driving, Abigail decides to not give Nate her home address and asks him to drop her off at a restaurant nearby. He agrees to do this but tells her that they will stop at a Home Depot on the way home first so he can get some things. Once they get to the Home Depot, he drives to an area in the back of the parking lot where there are no other cars around. Abigail begins to feel anxious and tells Nate that she will walk the rest of the way home from here. Upon attempting to exit the vehicle, Nate pulls a gun out and points it at her leg, threatening to kill her if she tries to get out. A baseball cap is placed on her head and pulled down so that her face cannot be seen, and she is told to sit low and not look out the windows. At one point during the drive, Abigail defies this command and tries to get a look as to where they are driving. She notices that they are up in the forested mountains north of Conway. Moments later, She feels a sharp pain in her leg. Nate has tased her and continues to do so multiple times throughout this drive now. As they are driving, Nate tells her that he is a good guy and is just going through a rough time. He asks her to bear with him through this period. They speak for a little, and when Abby asks if he is going to sexually assault her, he responds by asking how old she is. He breaks her phone with his bare hands so that she cannot be traced, and Abigail begins to pray out loud. Upon hearing her prayers, this prompts Nate to say that if she wants to sing, he'll put some music on. He then proceeds to pull out an iPod from his pocket and plays the song Paint It Black by the Rolling Stones. Upon arriving at the mobile home, Abigail is walked with her head down to a room that looks to be like some sort of shed or warehouse. The floor has a green carpet and there are tools all over the wall. Abigail's clothes are removed and her hands and feet are zip-tied together, so tight that she loses feeling in them. The constant zip ties that she is held captive with over this period have left permanent scarring on her skin. Loud heavy metal music is playing and she is sexually assaulted by Nate. When he is done, he then ties her to the bed in this room. Her mouth is gagged, eyes taped shut, a t-shirt is placed over her face, and then a motorcycle helmet is put over her head. At this very moment, back in the town of Conway, Abigail's mother Nathaniel Hernandez begins to worry as her daughter has not come home from school yet and is not responding to messages or phone calls. Xenia drives to the school and the librarian confirms that she did see Abigail leave for the afternoon. The police are immediately contacted and a search commences that very night. Over the next few days, the search continues with people scouring the wooded areas surrounding Conway, and police checkpoints that are stopping vehicles to search them that are coming in and out of town are set up. 3 days after the disappearance, it is Abigail's 15th birthday, and a vigil is held where her mother and sister plead for her to return to them safely if she can. Nightly press conferences take place, and on one of these occasions, Nathaniel Kibby comes home and tells Abigail that everyone is looking for her. He allows Abigail to watch this on television so that she can see her mother.
Please come home, and we miss you so badly. And Sarah and I think about you all the time. And we want you back with us, please. And we love you. We miss you. And happy birthday, Abby. And also, and to anybody out there who knows anything or noticed anything, if you noticed any change in Abby, those kids who knew Abby, just come out and let us know, and you can call the tip line. And thank you everyone for your support too, and the community also. Thank you.
It is unclear why Kibby allowed his prisoner to watch this conference with her mother pleading in it. Possibly it was for his own sadistic purposes. Or maybe he was showing her a hint of humanity by allowing her to see her loved ones. If he was showcasing this display of humanity, it really doesn't last long, as he continues to hold and torture her long after this conference takes place. Information surrounding what horrors Abigail had to endure are minimal, as many details of the charges and indictments have been redacted from court documents, out of respect for the young victim. Most of the information that has been made public, information that I will read to you now, is from interviews that Abigail agreed to do after the incident was over. Whilst being held as a prisoner, Nate forced Abigail to wear diapers whilst being chained to the bed. She would be left alone for long days whilst Nate went to work, and the heavy metal music would be blaring whilst he was gone. In these times of his absence, he also rigged up a system that would have a tube running into her mouth. This was connected to a water container and triggered by a switch that was weaved between her restraints. The switch was placed in her hand and was able to be flicked on and off using her thumb. If she were thirsty, she would flick the switch, and small drops of water would drip through the tube and into her mouth. She was sexually assaulted constantly, and multiple shock devices were used on her through this period. There is also a camera that is placed in the room and pointed at her. Although it was a fake and never recorded anything, there was a constant blinking red light, and Kibby told her that if she tried anything, he would know. He also wouldn't tell her his name and wore a mask at all times, ordering her to forget his face and demanding that she call him master. The date is October 23rd, and Nate is getting paranoid that even though Abigail has been missing for around half a month, the search has not been called off yet. He tells Abigail to write a letter to her mother saying that she has run away from home, that she was safe and she's not coming back. Abigail does as she is told, but uses her fingernail to indent the words help and kidnap into the paper. Kibby takes the letter, but discovers these words. As punishment, he uses the taser on her feet, which Abigail describes as being the worst pain that she has ever felt. This time, when writing a new letter, he watches her intently. The letter is sent and delivered to her mother, which is received on November 6th.
We believe that it was, in fact, written by Abby and was sent to her mother. We have been able to confirm that she has no source of income. Other than that letter, there has been no contact. We are concerned for her safety. She is not out there alone. She has somebody who is either helping her, whether that be a friend or what we fear is a foe. So we are going to continue this search for Abby, as Xenia has asked us to do, and as I think each and every citizen would ask us to do if it was their loved one.
Police confirm that Abigail's DNA profile matches what is found on the letter, but all leads are going nowhere and the case is rapidly becoming cold. After the release of the letter, public opinion begins to sway a little, as many people take to social media to say that the family should be forced to pay back the costs of the resources that were used to search for Abigail, that she is a runaway teen who selfishly has wasted everyone's time and money. Even some rumors circulate that she got pregnant and ran away out of shame to have the child privately. Abigail's family and friends do not believe that the letter is genuine, and think that Abigail has been manipulated to write it. Law enforcement seem to hold this position also, as they do not change the investigation from a potential abduction to a runaway teen. They say that all of the evidence points towards an abduction, and say that she had no items on her that looked like she would be staying away from home for an extended period, as seen on surveillance footage when she was leaving school that day. Text messages between her and her boyfriend, along with many other friends, show no indication that anything was upsetting her, or that she had any intention of running away. And she had many upcoming plans lined up, with her birthday being one of them. And this was planned to be a big event that she had been working on with her mother. Despite law enforcement's best efforts though, there is absolutely zero clues or evidence as to what may have happened to her, and the case does go cold. Months pass by, and an incident occurs between Nate and the owners of another vehicle whilst he is driving somewhere in February of 2014. Kibby rear-ends a truck belonging to 55-year-old Tammy Shackford. After the collision, he follows her back home to her residence, and not wanting to get the police involved, Nate pulls out a wad of cash and offers to give them money now to settle it and be done. Tammy refuses this offer though, and an argument occurs between the two. This leads to weeks of altercations between Nate and Tammy, and finally, one day in March of 2014, Nate is on Tammy's property taking photos of the damaged truck, when she comes outside to confront him. He knocks her to the ground, which injures her elbow, and Tammy says that she was incredibly scared. Quote, "He has serious issues. I could see it in his eyes. He was crazy and something really wasn't right with him." End quote. Police are called to Tammy's house and arrest Nate, and he is charged with assault. But this is dropped as he takes a plea deal for criminal trespassing. A condition of his bond is that he must turn over every gun that he owns to police. Officers who know Nate were expecting this to be a very difficult scenario to get him to turn his weapons over, and were rather surprised when they received a phone call from him one day. Days before the order said that the weapons must be handed over, he calls police and tells them to come and collect them all, as he has packed them all up and they are ready for retrieval. When officers approach his property, he was already waiting for them on the street, standing next to bags upon bags of packed up weapons. The officer says that Nate was very pleasant to deal with, and decided to not search his property for any more guns, as he believed that Nate had been honest and handed them all over. Having narrowly avoided that home inspection, Nate is in a paranoid panic and places Abby in the trunk of his vehicle, then drives for hours. Unknown to Abigail, he is driving around in circles. When he pulls in back to his mobile home, he takes her out of the vehicle, slings her over his shoulder, and puts her into one of the rooms of his storage container onto a mattress. She has no idea that she has been driven nowhere, and believes that she has been taken far, far away to another location. In this room, he tells her that the doors are rigged to explode, so if she tries to escape, or if anyone tries to rescue her without his knowledge, the door will ignite, and the entire room will burn Abigail to death. In her new location, more time passes, and Abigail believes that if she is ever to be released alive, she would need to gain this man's trust. With this acceptance of her situation, she had begun to form a level of comfort around him. The two talk often, and Nate tells her all about his life, his side business selling marijuana, how much he hates police, and where he learned to treat a prisoner the way he treats her. He tells her about his time in juvenile prisons where he was heavily abused and mistreated, and this is where he learned the skills that he now uses to keep her locked up with him. Abigail agrees to everything that he requests of her, and their bond grows even further. He begins to fall asleep lying next to her at night, and even on one occasion she rolls over and saw his face without the mask. He teaches her things like how to cook for her future husband and gives her cookbooks to read. On the side of one of these books, written in block letters, is the words, "Property of Nate Kibby." When asked who Nate Kibby is, he responds with, "How do you know my name?" Instead of enraging him, it seems to further develop his comfort with her. Kibby begins to tell her things like she is the closest thing that he'll ever have to having a daughter, and he shares activities with her, one of which being making counterfeit money together. Eventually, Kibby says that he wishes to provide her with a more humane living environment, so instead of having heavy metal blaring all of the time and being tied up, he places a shock collar around her neck. Once this is on, he asks her to raise her voice until the point where it shocks her, and says, "Now you know how it feels." This is how life plays out for Abigail over the next few months, until one more fateful incident occurs with Nate in the outside world. Kibby meets up with a sex worker whose name is Lauren Lundy, and they spend an evening together at a motel, which she describes to be very pleasant. Through conversation, he tells her that his name is Jay and that he has done bad things. Lauren comforts him though and says that we all do bad things at some points in our lives. Nate plays with her hair and runs his fingers over her face until she falls asleep. And when she wakes up, Nate is gone and has left 3 $50 bills on the table. Later that day, Lauren goes to a Walmart and tries to purchase some items, when they alert her that the money she has given them is counterfeit. Lauren is questioned by authorities, and when released, she contacts Nate in a rage. She yells at him and says that whatever counterfeit money operation he has going on in his basement, he better pack it up real quick because the police are on their way to his house. That very night, after receiving this phone call, Nate decides that he will let Abigail go free. He unties her and gives her a baseball cap to wear, then takes her to a Dairy Queen where they have a dinner together. Following this, he drops her off on an abandoned road about an hour's walk from her house. Nate takes his baseball cap back from her and then drives away. After leaving Abigail, he now spends the next few days burning and disposing of evidence that could link him to having held Abigail at his property. A stunned and grateful Abigail stands on the side of the road and laughs. Overjoyed, she walks home, and as she approaches her house, she can hear her mother on the phone inside. After being missing for 284 days, on July 20th, 2014, she is reunited with her family and emotions run high. Abigail does not tell her mother what happened though, as Kibby said if she speaks of it to anyone, he will kill any police that try to arrest him, and if he survives, he will come to kill her family and her dogs. A week passes though, and her mother finally gets through to Abigail, convincing her to speak of what happened. Police obtain details from Abigail of what Nate looks like and his full name, and then 9 days after her return home, a team is sent out to arrest Nathaniel Kibby. The SWAT team is deployed for this arrest because at this point, Kibby is in possession of his entire armory once again. The man though comes out peacefully without a shot being fired. The officer, who has known him for 2 decades, says that Kibby only becomes violent if he knows that he has the upper hand, so it did make sense that he did not have a standoff with police that day. During a court appearance, Abigail is in attendance to face the man who held her prisoner for 9 months. Kibby is charged with over 200 criminal offences and he pleads guilty, landing him with 45 to 90 years in prison. We only have the audio that is available for this, but Abigail offers a victim impact statement where it is reported that she does not break eye contact with Nathaniel.
I was told that I would have to give a victim impact statement and that I would have my time in court to talk. It seems like forever. 2 years have gone by, both fast and slow in different senses. But I often think about Kibby, and what he did affects my life on a day-to-day basis. my name does not mean the same thing anymore that it did before October 9th. I'm attending school, and I'm afraid to let anybody know what my last name is. Nobody knows what my last name is. I fall asleep thinking about you. Some people might call you a monster, but I've always looked at you as human. And I want you to know that even though life became a lot harder after that I still forgive you. That I wish things didn't have to work in the way that they do. But I need to be safe, and so does my family. And I want you to know that I did not do this to you. I did not put you in prison. You put yourself in prison. So I can't carry that blame on my shoulders when it's simply not true that I put you in prison. When you decided to point that gun at me, that was not my choice. It was not my choice to go to your house. It was not my choice for you to rape me. It was not my choice for you to threaten me. You did all that yourself. I don't want to talk down on you, and I hope that you don't think that I am. I'm just telling you the truth. Because sometimes I feel like I wear this whole thing like a millstone around my ankle. Sometimes I still feel like I'm chained, and sometimes I don't feel like I'm completely free. There are certain aspects of my freedom that I can never get back. But in the same aspect, I want you to know that I appreciate my freedom because of you, and that I enjoy and appreciate life because of you, and that I never look at sunshine in the same way, and that I never think about fresh air in the same way. And I also just want to thank you for giving me my freedom back.
It's cases like these that really make me take a step back from what I'm doing and think about what it means when we say someone is human. When researching cases like this one, I find it very easy to place people into roles such as prisoner and monster, and I don't think much beyond that. They are both key players that are involved in a scenario that I'm desperately trying to understand, and within that search for understanding, I forget to feel. So it's not often, when reviewing these sort of stories, that I get a glimpse into the mind of the victim, and it floors me like Abigail has. To see just how resilient she needed to be to get through this experience, and then face this man in court, really left me lost for words for quite some time. The torment that this 14-year-old had to endure is unimaginable. Not only the obvious sexual abuse that was constant, but the psychological, the blinking camera that was never on, the dripping tube of water as a source of hydration, and even the long days of boredom where she would just have to sit and wait for him to arrive home from work, with that loud music blaring. It really stands out how much of an incredible person she is, that upon finding freedom, she could say the words that she said in her statement. Most of us watching are likely blinded with anger, disgust, and horror over his actions, that it makes sense for us to say things like, "Let him rot in prison," or "He is better off dead." But the person who endured the horrors, Abigail, she doesn't seem to harbor the same ill will. It's a known phenomena that people in Abigail's situation are able to form bonds with their captor, and this is a visceral example of what that bond may look like. And what shocks me is that it doesn't look like something that's abstract, a connection that is emotionally unrecognizable to me. What it appears to look like is nothing more than the fact that Abigail is an example of a good-hearted person, one who for her own survival was able to uncover the good elements of this horrible man and form a real human connection with him. Connection that he likely craved so desperately, and connection that quite possibly led to her being released alive. Nathaniel Kibby is clearly a damaged individual. I couldn't find information on his childhood or family life, or anything that may shed light as to why he found himself on the path in life that he did. And he has chosen to remain silent on why he took Abigail that day. Whatever the reason or cause though, it doesn't matter in my mind, as there is no excuse. There's never an excuse to harm innocent people, and there's no amount of mitigating factors on the planet that could soften the blow of what he did. Who knows where he may have ended up had he not saw Abigail walking home that day. From his track record, it appears that his violent tendencies were only getting worse and worse with age, and we don't know where he may have been or what he may have been capable of in 5 or 10 years' time, who he could have hurt or how many. Quite possibly, Abigail saved many others with her humanity and strong spirit. Her spirit allowed him to soften to her, and this eventually led to his capture, and there is no telling how many lives that may have saved. It's one way to look at it, I suppose, and if it is the case, it is still unfair that Abigail had to relinquish such a huge part of her existence for this ordeal to take place. How does one re-enter the world after trauma like that? I believe that Abigail is doing a far better job than I could have ever done readjusting, and I hope she continues to thrive and lead a healthy life. I think this young girl, whether she had it before this incident or learned it throughout, holds wisdom that many of us could learn from. To finish, I'd like to read a short quote from one of her interviews. Words that I feel are easy for anybody to say. Words that I've quite possibly even seen in some variations or another via inspirational posts on social media. And words that I'd usually scroll past and ignore. Yet today, I did find them hard to ignore. Coming from someone such as Abigail Hernandez, knowing what she went through and how she emerged out the other side with her spirit intact, these words were able to impact me in a way not like ever before, and I hope they can do the same for you. Quote, "Every time I go outside now, I really try to appreciate the sunlight and fresh air. It really went into my lungs differently now, and I really try to never take that for granted. Don't lose hope. Even when you feel like you've lost everything, hope is something that nobody can take away from you. And just keep that. It'll keep you going."